Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering the patch 13.5 top lane tier list. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there were a couple of buffs this patch towards certain top laners. Aatrox was one of them. He got a bit of a buff towards his late game W and a bit of a buff towards his late game R. However, these changes actually ended up not really affecting him at all, and in turn, he's kind of going to stay around where he is. But as they were buffs, people are now itemizing Aatrox in a different way with the Iceborne Gauntlet and stuff like this. Aatrox I'm actually going to put in the lower end of the C tier, so he's no longer a weak champion, he is just a pretty below average champion. Kennen is also going to move up into the C tier. I think Kennen, with the buffs this patch, were quite generous. They were, good Q damage and E damage towards minions, plus the W indicator and the ratio on the Q going up as well. Overall, it helps Kennen a lot. It actually makes a lot of his trades a lot stronger. You just have to be careful, as he can struggle into tankier compositions, and he's good in situations where he can be picked as an AP assassin. You just have to be careful because he can struggle in certain matchups and just overall team comps. Boss exhaust does hurt him a lot. But overall, Kennen doing a bit better this time, so we'll leave him here. Rumble, I'm actually going to move up the overall E magic resist shred, going from 10 to 20 to 12 scaling to 20 to 20 scaling to 40. Overall, helps Kennen a lot, and in time, you can go up a tier. Overall, Kennen can itemize both Protobelt and Night Harvester quite nicely. He doesn't scale great, but the amount of lane pressure this champ can provide, he just has a pretty steep learning curve around the heat mechanics. It's very different to a lot of champions, so definitely pick Kennen in situations where he's good. Overall, not a bad champion anymore. I wouldn't say he was bad beforehand, he's just decent and a pretty above average. Pantheon, I'm actually going to move up into the A tier. Pantheon is doing really well after the changes. The Q mana cost going down, combined with the cast time also going down, and the cooldown going down early on, for losing a bit of health regen and a bit of ECD later on, was quite nice for Pantheon. It kind of makes his lane bullying a bit stronger, and the overall Q poke and harass is a bit more frequent, and you can do more damage through the amount of Qs you can cast. So Pantheon moves up a tier. Not bad. Does counter things like Yasuo Yone quite nicely, and can do quite well into a lot of the champions within the top lane tier list. Tryndamere is actually going to stay in the A tier. Tryndamere got some pretty nice buffs with the AD growth going up and the armor growth going up a bit. It helps him in solo queue, definitely, but Tryndamere I would have already considered a fairly decent champion. It just makes him a bit stronger. So if you itemize Tryndamere correctly, go things like Ravenous and the crit changes, which benefits him quite nicely. Overall, Tryndamere still a decent A tier champion, if not a bit stronger. So, yep. Ramos is actually going to move down a tier. I had Ramos in my A tier because he was just doing overwhelmingly well. Ramos is still a pretty good champion. He's just not as pickable in the top lane compared to Malphite as he once was, because the nerfs just tagged him a bit. Gangplank actually going to move down 2 tiers. But overall changes which he received towards the E being visible underneath his health bar, the E cooldown going down from 18 to 14 to 18 flat, and the passive losing 70 damage later on, I believe. A decent amount, so Gangplank now is less mindless, and you actually have to think about using your barrows correctly, combined with using your passive in situations where it's good, rather than one-shotting someone with passive combined with Prowler's Claw, because the amp went through on that. Puts him in a healthier spot, definitely. So, Gangplank, a B tier. He should be sat around a 49% win rate. That is probably where it's healthy for him, not 51 plus, because then people who aren't great at the champion and should be winning are winning games. Soraka is being removed. No one really plays Soraka top anymore. It was kind of a pick which I used to pull out a decent amount. I used to think it was really good, but over time it's less pickable because the overall game has changed, and a lot of the items which made it decent have also been nerfed. Things like Moonstone did receive nerfs back along, and overall it's just kind of faded out, so I'm not going to include it anymore. Anivia I'm also going to remove. The play rate just drops every single patch. I still think Anivia is probably an S tier top laner, has really, really good matchups, but as no one's really playing her, it's kind of not great to have on the tier list. Alistar is also being removed. People have kind of got on from playing Alistair. He was picked because he got some nice AP buffs, but overall, no one really found much success on him. Well, very few people found success on him, so I'm just going to remove him. There isn't actually any F tier champions in the top lane at the moment. If there is any, I'd probably consider Lee Sin. People pick him a decent amount and don't find great success on him, but he's not like that weak to the point where I think he's an F tier, so I'm going to leave him up here. Kled is actually going to move up. I think Kled is going to be someone I'm going to have in my S tier because Kled is just finding a lot of success. He does a lot of damage, really good itemization options. Things like Stride Breaker or Eclipse are both really valuable on him. You can go kind of towards the tanky direction. I wouldn't recommend it. He does really well with things like Ravenous and Eclipse being second build on that. So yeah, Kled pretty strong at the moment. Cho'Gath, I'm actually going to move up. I'm surprised Cho was still in my C tier. I think I meant to move him up into the B tier last time. He's actually close to the A tier. I'm not going to put him in the A tier because he actually loses to a lot of it. But Cho, definitely performing a lot better after the buffs, so going to move him up. Mundo, I'm actually also going to move up. The grasp changes helped Mundo and Tarm a decent amount. More health equals more damage for these two champs because they have good health scalings within their kit. So overall, benefits them. It also did nerf them a bit because less sustain on the rune, but as they were two of the champs with health growth, they can go up. Nasus is someone I was going to move down. He's just not performing as well as he used to. He was sat around a 52% plus win rate, did work quite nicely into a lot of the matchups, but over time has obviously fallen a bit, so I'm actually just going to move him down to the B tier. I don't think he's a bad pick. I still think he works really well. I just think people are probably itemizing him incorrectly in certain spots. Gargoyle second is most of the time going to be his strongest option. Can go things like Frozen Heart and Spirits, obviously. You just have to also pick when you're building Triforce or Divine Cinder. Both these options do work. And last, oh no, there's two more. Udit is a champ which I'm going to move down. Where is he? He was in B tier. I'm actually going to move him down into the C tier as a below average pick. His nerfs hurt him more in the top lane than they did in the jungle. I still think he's a decent jungler, just not as strong in the top lane as he used to be. So that's kind of the just logic behind that. I'm also going to move Ryze down. I think Ryze is also a below average pick in the top lane now. He doesn't see a lot of play in general, and because he performs to a relatively okay standard when it's mostly just one tricks who play him, I'm actually just going to put him below average because for the average player, it'd probably hurt if they pick him. So that's kind of the thought with that one as well. But overall, there's still a decent amount of really strong top laners at the moment. Things like Rengar, really, really powerful. Olaf, also a really powerful champ. Zac, a really good tank. Shen is also a really good tank in the current meta with ADCs being really strong. Singe, just overall good champ. Good disruption. Warwick, really, really powerful laner. Darius, also a really powerful laner. Camille has really good pick, does a lot of damage. Jax has really good damage, really strong champion at the moment. And Clyde, also a really powerful champion. Clyde's actually up here as being one of the stronger ones at the moment, so definitely consider picking him. But well, that's the thoughts for the tier list. So if you enjoyed the content, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.